Hello again, everyone, and this time I really do mean welcome back to the NPC Dungeon. And this is because this is the first week that I'm releasing all my episodes on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays instead of just all on Fridays. If you haven't listened to my other DM Advice episode this week, it's all about setting up for a good prison break arc. Today, I'm going to be talking about the follow-through and actually executing the actual escape and running the game. Don't worry, you won't have to have listened to the other episode to understand this one, but I still recommend it. Either way, this week's story that I'll be releasing tomorrow on Sunday is also going to be more about prison breaks, so be sure to listen to that one as well. But with all that out of the way, I have no more announcements. Let's just focus on today's topic and talk about how you might run your very own prison break arc. So let's learn something. The first point that I want to get out of the way for actually executing the prison break arc goes back to something I said last episode. I know I just said that you don't have to have listened to that one to get this one, but it's still true. I'm just referencing it. The point can actually stand pretty well on its own. So what is it? It's just that you need to make multiple escape routes for your players. Making only one thing or one sequence of events your players need to do is just a recipe for disaster. They're not in your head. They may never come across it. If they only need to find one tool and use it to chip away at a very specific wall or door until the guard routes open up, that's kind of cool, but it should by no means be the only route. Maybe there's a friendly guard who may also smuggle them out, or the prisoner who can create a distraction. Maybe one of the tiles on the ceiling is loose, and all they need to do is find the right time to climb out. Now, your players suddenly have a lot of options, and the first thought you might have when presented with this something like, wait, won't this make it really easy for them? Maybe, but realistically, probably not. Again, I want you to remember that they're not in your head. They will not see all those options the way you see them. They probably won't even know that they're all there to start with. So for them, they're not just looking around for different ways out, but then they're also comparing them to find the best one once they find different ones. In fact, and this is kind of what I'm leading up to, when I do this, I don't even think about it as making different escape routes. I just simply see it as making different parts of the environment that they could potentially use to escape. This also helps me plan for random things my players might do. And then once I have all of that, I sit down and think of as many scenarios as I can based on what my players might do with it. Just like I said, for a lot of my points in my first episode on prison breaks, this is just good practice anyway to do with other encounters, not just prison breaks, but it's a lot more important to do all of this in the prison break because, as I always like to say, it's much more compact and it is a much more intense environment where your players have to be very hyper specific in their goal of get out. And speaking of making the escape routes just things to do instead of making them direct routes, I'm reminded of how I go about making mystery encounters, and that's my next point. Plan it like a mystery. So what do I mean when I say plan it like you would a mystery? Well, in a mystery, you have all these different clues lying around that your players can find and then put them together. A lot of people try to make a mystery very linearly by thinking about the players in terms of doing certain things. They think the players will go here, find this out, then go there, find that out, but that's not how it works. In a mystery, it's probably best to make all your clues first in a kind of logic puzzle format and then disperse them throughout the setting in the places they would realistically be. For example, if the blacksmith saw something, that clue would be with the blacksmith. Your clues need to be things that would just happen as a result of whatever happened, only puzzling because your players weren't there, probably, at the time of the crime. This kind of puts your mystery in kind of two parts. One, where your players are looking for all the information necessary to solve the riddle as they hear about and go to places related to mystery with all the kinds of possible fun encounters along the way, and the other where they're actually putting it all together. Now, what does all of this have to do with prison breaks? Well, you can treat your escape routes and things that your players might have to use and do to escape as clues. Of course, you make them so they have a means of escape, but I like to plan for them as if they're just part of the prison. Just like how when I run a mystery, I said I just make the clues as if they're part of the mystery. Things that would happen as a result of whatever was going on to cause the mystery to occur in the first place, not things your players have to do. This means that your players will have to look around and find the means to escape and then put them all together and formulate a plan, just like I said with the mystery. So you make your means of escape just part of the world, place them in places they would be natural to find, and then allow your players to come up with a plan. This is one of the reasons why I like to organize my prison arcs into scenes. I mentioned this in my last episode, and for those of you who haven't seen it, I basically just said that I like to organize my prison break arcs into different scenes based on their schedule, like when they go to lunch, when my players have free time, when they have exercise time, whatever else. This helps me plan for when my players will find certain means to escape, and as an added point, for all this to actually work, it's imperative that you give your players at least some time to plan together. And this, ironically enough, actually leads me to my next point, which strangely enough is separate your players. Now, I'll be honest, this one's more preference than anything else. You don't have to do it, it's just something that I like to do. And because of that, I'll try to keep this point kind of brief. And this is also another reason why splitting my Prison Break arcs into scenes, like I said earlier, helps me out a lot. My players will then need to find little spaces in their schedule so they're either together or have a contact that can communicate with other party members, or, and this is fun, have to sneak off and try to meet in private. They have to kind of get creative to plan together. And if your players ever do get separated in the prison, make sure you plan for this. In my last Prison Break arc that I ran, I had a couple of other inmates, NPCs in the prison, who worked with one of my players in the past. One of them happened to be in the cell block where some of the other party members were, and they ended up being a kind of channel for communication between the players. But get creative with it. There are a lot of ways, and there should be a lot of ways, that your players can use to communicate. Just like when you leave things for them to escape, use flaws in the structure by allowing them, maybe with a little bit of creativity, to find ways to communicate. Maybe there's a break in one of the guard patrols they can use to meet together. Maybe there's a place late at night where they can sneak off and meet together as well. And just like with escape routes, it's probably best, like I said, that you leave multiple routes for communication in case they don't find one random one you leave for them. And again, they might find ways of getting around that you didn't plan for, so be ready. Again, the more you plan for, the better. And there's nothing wrong with having an NPC suggest an idea that your players didn't think of. This is something you can use not just in Prison Break arcs, but just in general. And in this case specifically, whether it be a way to communicate or even an escape route, this can be a really useful tool to use. Bonus points if the NPC wants something in return, maybe even a way out with them. It could be that they have all the answers, but not the means or the people to do it. That's where the players come in. But again, there are many ways of doing this. Don't be afraid to be a little creative. And my last 2 points are things that I mentioned in my last episode, but didn't really develop a lot there. The first of these that I'm going to mention is timing. Just like your players will be using things to escape, whether it be an NPC, a weak wall, or a runaway airship, they will probably be using timing as well. By this I mean things that they can time parts of their escape with to maybe help them hide while they plan and execute that plan. Things like predictable guard patrols, noisy weather, and chaos caused by another inmate are all examples of this because they can use this to hide their tracks. Do your players need to sneak into the cafeteria to meet someone with a tool they need? Well, maybe it has to be closed one day. Maybe one of the players, or somebody else, released something that required the officials to close it for whatever reason, leaving it perfectly open and empty for them to do this. Maybe, just like I said at the cafeteria example, your players have a chance to play a role in this. They might do something that causes a distraction they can time their escape with. Maybe they see a particularly noisy inmate with a grudge against someone else. You can put them in their path so they can use it to their advantage, aggravating the inmate until they blow up, make a distraction for them to escape with. But again, this shouldn't be the only way for them to do this. You should put many ways in their pathway for them to escape, make distractions, meet up, etc. That one was one of my more specific points, so it wasn't too long, and my next one will probably follow the same example and also not be all that long. And it is, have other things going on. It might sound kind of weird, but hear me out. What I'm saying here is that it helps to give your prison a little bit of personality, just like I said in my last episode. Are there secret experiments going on directed by an evil scientist or something? If it's in a mine, is there some ancient secret hidden deep in the mine? Is there a fighting ring directed by the warden? Is there a feud between rival factions of inmates? And it can even be something even simpler than that you can use, like maybe a friend of one of the players works in the prison gift shop or library and can sneak them supplies. This simple idea of flavoring the prison and having events happening in the background that can serve to give that little extra personality can even help you generate ideas for this prison escape, and it can also help your players generate ideas for their escape on their end as well. But even outside of the prison arc specifically, it can also help you generate ideas for the campaign as a whole. For example, if there's an evil scientist doing evil experiments in the prison, what role does that play in the larger world? And likewise, if there's an evil scientist in the larger world, why not have them do experiments in the prison? Just like with anything else, this can go so many ways depending on your campaign. Anyway, that's it. Again, if you haven't listened to my other episode on prison breaks, feel free to do so now, and join me for my story this week. That will be tomorrow if you're listening to this on the day the episode comes out. As I said, it is going to be a prison break story. I'm really looking forward to it. And of course, thanks for listening, and I hope this was useful to you in one way or another. And until next time, let's learn something.